Your intellect can come to naught when your emotions hold sway. I realized I'd found my purpose, my passion in life.
You need to be radically kind. It's sad to put that word in front of kindness, but I think we need it.
25 years ago, you wouldn't have wanted to know me.
Elevating and celebrating stories of kindness when I find that right, where it's just random acts of kindness.
I don't need to come from anger. I come from a different place. I come from a place of love.
Hi, I'm Jim Fielding. Welcome to Ask for an Answer. Hello, kind, curious, talented human beings. I am so excited to welcome you to another episode of Ask for an Answer with Jim Fielding. I'm really, really excited about this episode. My poor guest, I've moved him a couple times. I'll just say my schedule's been kind of crazy and he has been so responsive and flexible, which I appreciate. I am going to let Harvey introduce himself and give his background, and then we're going to dive right in. So welcome, Harvey.
Well, thank you, Jim. I'm very excited to be on and, speak to your guests. I'm Harvey Deutschendorf, and I'm a emotional intelligence expert, speaker, and a writer. And, where do I start? I've been involved in this area for, over 25 years now. And I first learned about emotional intelligence when a book came out called Emotional Intelligence and What Can Matter More Than IQ and it was Daniel Goleman. And, I read the book and it got me all excited. Basically, it was a life changer for me. It changed my whole life around reading that book. And I can get into my personal story about why that happened in a bit. But I have basically, since I read that book, read his book, I went on and I just sort of threw myself into emotional intelligence. And I have written two books. The latest one is called Emotional Intelligence Game Changers, 101 Simple Ways to Win at Work and Life. And that came out, and it's now published in, it's being published in Egypt, in Portugal, in India, and Mexico. So amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is such, any of our listeners or viewers know authors, to get published. And so that means it's being translated in those languages then.
That's
too,
right, except India. Wow. India, it's being in English.
English,
it's
interesting.
In English because everybody there apparently speaks English. And reads. Yeah, it's a second language.
Wow, so congratulations.
The first one, The Other Kind of Smart, which is now published my first one back in 2009. That was also published in Vietnam and in China and Saudi Arabia, a couple places I never ever expected.
Amazing. Okay, now I've added another question where we can talk about the global. We can talk about the globalness of EI.
Yeah.
So first off, Harvey is in Canada. I'm in the United States. And as I was preparing for this and doing my research for you, so I studied German for a long time, and I have to ask about your name because that means your last name means little German village, right?
Village, yes.
German village, yes.
Yeah.
So you're Canadian, but of German heritage. I just love it's such a... It's a German word. Your last name is a German word. It's so fascinating to me.
Yet the heritage is much more complicated than that. There's my parents actually grew up in and were raised and born in Lithuania, and so were they lived there for a number of generations. My grandmother on my father's side was Polish, so the name is German because somewhere way back, they came from, my father's side anyways, were Prussian generations before. And that's where the name originates. But, the heritage is a lot more mixed than that.
Yeah, no. Well, that's, by the way, that's the real world. My heritage is very mixed as well. In the world we're living in, I'm like, we're all we're all immigrants from somewhere, and I have a very mixed heritage too. But when I saw your name the first time, I was like, that is literally a name that was probably on my vocabulary test at some point in my German travels. I love that. So let's go back to that Dan Goleman book.
Right.
And you read it. Did you know the term emotional intelligence before you read that book?
No, I hadn't. I had never heard the term emotional intelligence before I read it, but it was an interesting term. Yeah. And I could tell you more about why I was so interested in that. Yeah, because my family actually came to Canada after the Second World War. They're refugees. They had left Lithuania because the Red Army came in and they were refugees. And being of, I guess, German descent, they still spoke German. Most of them resettled there, the family. But my father decided to come to Canada. My mother didn't want to. She didn't want to leave the family. They came over with nothing. When they were, they left home with their suitcase, whatever they could carry. Then they came to Canada with nothing. They had to borrow money from the church for passage. We were very poor for at least the first 12 years. And because my mother, when we got older, whenever we got ill, became ill, my brother and I, my brother was 2 when he came over. She told us, well, she blamed herself. She said, because there were times she only had an orange to feed both of us in a day. Like, was that? I don't remember that. I don't remember going hungry or anything. We were poor, but then there's everybody in the neighborhood was poor.
Right.
So I wasn't that aware that we were, probably poorer than anybody else, but I wasn't that aware of it. But things were never good at home because my father was a very angry man and very, very, very abusive. And it just became worse as he became older. I got older and stuff. And home wasn't a very happy place. My escape was school, because school had books, had sports, had friends and stuff. So I wanted more than I saw around me. I was always a dreamer. I wanted to experience the large world out there and everything. So my answer was to get a good education. Unfortunately, I did well in school. And I remember in high school, my principal said to me one day, right in front of the class, he said, "Harvey, you've got a good head on your shoulders. Don't let it go to your head." And it was like a life raft for me. I said, "Okay." Right. I'm smart, I can do whatever I want to do. It's been recognized by somebody who is, highly educated, intelligent. He traveled and things like that, and so it made me realize, I got potential here, and so I managed to, go to university. I got a degree. I was working as a professional, and went far beyond what anybody in my family had. My parents were poorly educated, very poorly educated, and so they never gave me any direction. I didn't have extended family give me direction when I left home. I was basically sent out on my own, and with no real support. And so I had a good job working as a professional, and I was, life should have been great, but it wasn't. It wasn't, because I didn't really have the career I wanted. I didn't have the relationships I wanted. And then I thought, I'll figure this out. I read self-help books and stuff because, hey, I'm a smart guy. My principal told me. So but nothing,
you've got potential. You've got potential.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, nothing seemed to really work. And then I heard about this book by Daniel Goleman called The Other Kind of, it's called Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. And I thought this was interesting. So I picked up a copy, and on page 4, something just jumped out at me. And this line changed my life. It said, "Your intellect can come to naught when your emotions hold sway." And I said, aha. It was like an aha moment. I said, okay, this is it. This is it. Okay, I may be a smart guy, but when my emotions are out of whack here, like I've got a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of fear because I didn't grow up in a very safe place. I mean, I had a good mother. I had a very good mother. She was kind and caring and everything, but she really, really couldn't help me when I went out into the world. She could be there for me when I went home and stuff, but she couldn't really help me. So basically, what it told me is, okay, I needed to do something with my emotions. Lucky at the time, there's sort of a growing men's movement. Men had been coming together and in groups and start talking about things that men normally don't talk about. Their feelings. Wow.
Yeah. Emotions. Men are allowed to have emotions.
Yeah, really. Besides anger. We're only we're allowed anger, but nothing else.
Yeah.
No,
anger and aggression. You're allowed something beyond anger
nothing
and
else.
aggression.
No, we can't cry. We can't be we can go on. No.
Can't be honest. Can't be honest.
No. So anyways, there's a movement that had started in the U.S. called the Mankind Project, actually in the mid-90s. Yes, and so it has now grown to, different. It came to Canada, and then it came to, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, Germany, France. It's maybe more countries I already am aware of, but it's grown.
Wow,
fantastic organization. I joined early on, and it was a place where men could feel safe. They create a safe environment. Men could share their emotions and talk about what really matters in life, what they're going through and stuff. So it helped me. I started doing my own work, and while I was doing my own work on that, making changes in my life, I thought, this is very powerful stuff, emotional intelligence. The problem is at the time, it's like Goleman's book and other books were very highly academic, theoretical, or they are just like very totally business focused. And I said, somebody's got to write a book out there that sort of breaks this down and makes it easy for people to understand and tells them what they can do to make these changes. And I said, well, somebody should write a book. And then I said, well, I'm somebody.
Yeah.
And I'd actually written a book years before on sort of men's issues, and I managed to get it published. And I said, well, I can do this. Well, this one wasn't as easy, but I managed to get it published, and I called it The Other Kind of Smart, because being smart, being intellectual is not enough. It's not enough to get by in this world. We need to be able to understand our emotions and be able to manage our emotions. So, that's what I was working on. So I decided to write this book, and when I finally got it published, I sort of haven't looked back. And so
That's an amazing path. And I forgot to say in the beginning, Harvey and I met through LinkedIn, the glory of LinkedIn, because I think I started commenting on his posts. He started commenting on my posts. And then which you can do these days, I started cyber stalking you. Like, I really then dove in and saw that you had written. And I think, just in that opening, you said so many important things. First off, the principle that validated you, right? And that external validation of someone saying you have tremendous potential, kid. Stay humble, right? I love that. Stay humble, but you have, and how important that was. And then the Mankind Project, but also you said a couple times, which I write a lot about. And, I tend to write more about leadership and community, but it's creating safe environments and that you were seeking a safe environment based on how you were brought up, and we all have these childhood traumas. We all have these childhood issues that we come into adulthood with, and also come into the workplace with, or wherever we work, we bring them into our environments, into our homes and all that. And the fact that you had identified quite early on that you needed to seek safe spaces. And so I love that. And also, I love when you said someone should write a book about it. Oh, I could do that. Like, I love that. Because you identified a need, not necessarily a need because you're like, this is going to be commercially viable and make me rich, but a need that people needed to hear about EQ, EI in a way that was going to help them improve their lives. I think that's it. Now I know why I was so attracted to meeting you and following you, because I just think there's so much wisdom in that. And finding those safe spaces wherever they are, I think, especially for men, it's so undervalued. The concept of, and to your point, like when I say safety, I'm always talking about psychological and physical safety, like all the definitions of safety that allow you then to be honest and be vulnerable and to be, I like to say the most authentic version of yourself or the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable that you got there kind of on your own. I mean, it's very commendable.
Yes, it took me a few years. It didn't happen. I was into middle age already, but when that really started to happen, and when I started to figure things out, I think that happens because it takes up till then till we really we start to find out what isn't working.
Right.
And life and try to change that. I think we're sort of blindly going ahead and trying to figure things out until we run into that place where we figure this isn't working. So I got to make some changes. So,
I mean, I love that, Harvey, because I say, and I think we've written back and forth about this, I often say people change out of vision or out of pain.
Yes.
But the reality is, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but I think it's probably in the high 80s. It's usually out of pain that people change. I mean, to be a person that changes out of vision is very advanced.
Yeah.
And like you said, you had the aha moment. I think most people that I've met in life and most people I've worked with in my, coaching practice or my advising practice have changed because they hit a wall, to your point. And all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, this isn't the life that I imagined. This isn't the life I thought I was building. I'm replicating a formula that I thought was supposed to be successful. And yet I'm anxious. Like you used the word anxious, you had anxiety. I'm anxious. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not satisfied. And I think, we need more conversations like this, more conversations like the Mankind Project to tell people it's okay to feel that way, like to acknowledge that you felt that way. So you talked about reading the book as an aha moment and the Mankind Project. Once you got into it and put that first book out, that had to be life-changing, I'm guessing, like getting that first book out.
It did. It was life-changing. I started to get out there, and I was, I started doing some speaking and public speaking about it, and it just caught on. I realized I'd sort of found my purpose, my passion in life. It just sort of it came through that and came through my own work. And what I had sort of discovered about myself, and I had been able to change things, very drastically myself. And I said, well, this is powerful. I want other people to be able to do that. So and make it. I wrote, my writing is. I tried to make it simple, actionable, and doable, because I think most people will get into emotional intelligence, maybe read about it, and then they'll say, well, unless it has there's something they can grasp and grab onto, they'll say, oh, I can really use this today, and I can see how this is working for me. It'll sort of just pass over them, and they won't do anything with it. But I wanted people to actually start using it and start doing something with it in their lives, like I had been actually working on it, and I saw my life changing. Not overnight, but of course over time. I saw the change because, I have done talks, and when I've gotten, the first thing I've said when I've gotten up, started my talk on the stage, is I said, 25 years ago, you wouldn't have wanted to know me. And the person that I am today wouldn't have wanted to know that person back 25 years ago. And I sort of think about where I was and where I am, and I'm thinking, wow, when I really think about it, some of the things I remember about myself with very cringeworthy today.
Yeah. So, okay, you said when your parents came that they had your older brother, right? I'm assuming older brother.
Yeah.
How far apart are you guys?
5 years.
And is he's still with us? He's still part of your life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was his, I was wondering, like, what was his reaction when you went through the change? Because I have one sibling as well. She's younger.
Yeah.
I think it's a very unique relationship when there's only two siblings in a family.
Yeah.
But what did he think? I mean, did he notice the change? Was he supportive? I'm just curious.
Actually, no, it's actually a very, very, very sad
case. Sorry.
Because, no, it's okay. It's okay. He was sort of, he sort of, I guess probably took the brunt of my father's abuse, but he became sort of, just withdrew inside himself, and we never were able to develop a relationship. It's basically he had at the time what they called a nervous breakdown. Today they would call it PTSD. So that sort of stayed with him his whole life, and he sort of withdrew into a shell and was never able to sort of hid from the world, and there's never able to form any relationships. So basically, there's sadness there, but of course,
so you were really on your own.
Yeah, I was really
I'm really getting this picture of like that high school principal.
Yeah.
You had a loving mother, this hard father.
Yeah.
And then a brother that had withdrawn.
Yeah.
You were really, really on your own.
Yeah.
And what city were you in? What city did you guys move to in Canada?
Well, we lived in a little place out in the country, but it was close to Edmonton, and that's where I am now, in Edmonton.
So you kind of moved to the big city.
I moved to the big city, yes.
Yeah, you moved to the big city.
Yeah, the closest big city, that was Edmonton. So that's where I ended up.
Because you knew you had to get out. I get the sense that you had to get out, which is so, I mean, I always feel terrible about this because I know some of my listeners.
Yeah.
It's the same way I felt about my hometown, like Toledo, Ohio. Like Toledo, Ohio was a bigger town. Like I could have gone back. There weren't a ton of jobs, honestly, in Toledo when I was graduating from university. But I had to detach from Toledo because not from a family situation like yours, but because I grew up knowing about my sexuality and having been bullied. And I just had so many bad memories of Toledo that I knew I needed to get out. Like my horizons had to be outside of Toledo.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the funniest things, Harvey, about writing the book, because my book is like leadership and life lessons, but it's got a lot of memoir-ish to it. And it's so fascinating to me that some of the people from my hometown that have read the book and then commented and said, we had no idea, right? We had no idea that you grew up. My mother was an active alcoholic. I was struggling with my sexuality. And I said, well, of course you didn't, because I was doing my job. Yeah. Like I was masking all that and attempting to fit in because to your point, I mean, I was in school in the 70s and the 80s. We didn't have the language. We didn't have a lexicon. We had counselors in school, but they really were dealing with people who were truant or delinquent. There was no place to go to have these conversations. No. And so I was basically one thing on the surface and a mass of insecurities and anxieties underneath. And it wasn't until, to your point, you said middle age for you, much later in your life. For me, it was my late 20s. Where I finally was like, okay, this is insanity. Like I have got to deal with this. But for me, it meant geography was such a big part of it. And it was really for me, not only leaving Ohio, it was really leaving the Midwest. I had to get to California. Like
Right.
for me, and I don't think I really fully started forming until I landed. San Francisco was my first city in California. And then it was almost like I could breathe. And the way I describe it to people is it's kind of like the original Wizard of Oz movie, how it starts out in black and white. Like, I don't think I saw in color until I got to California. And it's not that I had a miserable childhood. Again, my mother, even though she was an active alcoholic, was very involved in our lives and was very loving. My dad was the provider, not abusive, but just distant, emotionally distant, because his job was to make the money and put the food on the table. It was not to nurture. It was not to. So again, not anything like what you went through, but, emotional distance. So I didn't, and for me growing up with the way I was feeling, it was just having no role models, like literally. And I thought, I am going to be miserable. I am going to be unsuccessful. I am not going to be worthy of the life that I had in my mind because of my quote difference, So I totally understand, very different times.
Yeah.
Different countries, different backgrounds and stuff, but those feelings of isolation and that feeling of it's unfortunately very common, and we need to talk about it more.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I went back to a high school reunion. It was the 49th. Because
You're afraid you weren't going to get the 50th?
No, because I'd never gone to one. I never went back, and then I went to we had we had to put 3 classes together because it was a small town. To get a reunion, to get enough people. And I went there, and I had. It was very interesting. I had no idea what to expect. Right. If I'd even recognized some of the people, I had sort of run into some of them occasionally, in Edmonton and stuff, and stayed, a bit in touch. But basically, I had formed a whole new world. Some of these people had stayed together, even though they moved to a larger city. They sort of remained friends, and I had left and went there, and it was funny because when I got there. I had been in the local paper and stuff a number of times because of my books.
Because your books,
and things, and so people had known about me, and I went there and I was sitting down, and this guy that had been in my class for 4 years, I didn't recognize him, but he knew who I was, and so I said, well, what have you been doing? I expected, after not seeing people for 40 years, that we'd be full of conversation, we'd be talking. It was loud and everything, but it was more almost like a celebration of life atmosphere. It was very quiet. Nobody had anything to say. After all that time, you'd think, but no. So I said, what have you been doing? And he said to me, well, I haven't been traveling all over the world speaking. And I realized, and I said, well, I haven't exactly been doing that either, but if you want to think that, well, but somebody had come. There was somebody that was sort of, I ran into him in Edmonton. He sort of kept in touch with everybody. And he was telling everybody about what I'd been doing, things like, I've written all these books, and I've met Obama and things, like I'm this famous person in the world, and so everybody had this message, and people would come up to me and they'd say, I've heard about you, and well, okay, so wow, here I didn't expect that,
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's funny too because. When you wrote that first book, same thing for me. Like, you never know when so many people contact me now. I'm working on my second and third book simultaneously, and because they're very different. But, and now people come to me for advice, now that you're a published author and the whole bit. And I said, listen, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work. Yeah. Like, just getting first off, writing a book is a huge accomplishment. Then getting
Really?
a book published
Sure.
is even a bigger accomplishment. And then actually getting the book to sell is even a bigger accomplishment, right? And it is funny because you realize you're putting yourself out there, regardless of the kind of book you write. And then everybody kind of that does follow you starts, maybe they'll follow you on LinkedIn or Instagram or something, and they really do feel like they know you. Particularly people from your past come up that it's funny. I went to my 30th reunion and had a similar circumstance. And at that time, I think at my 30th, I was president of Disney Store, right? And that was like the only thing anybody would talk about was Disney, because they thought I worked for Mickey Mouse, right? Like, and Walt Disney signed my paycheck, but the whole thing. But when I was writing the book, because I am close to my sister, she's younger, she was one of my early readers because I knew the stories I was telling were also her stories. Like if I'm telling the story of our mother, it's her mother too. And I needed to make sure she was comfortable with it. But it is interesting. My book's only been out. It'll be 3 years in August. It is interesting, the conversations it opens, because, people feel comfortable. They feel that they know you. And I've also had the situation where people start sharing, not inappropriate, but very personal things about their children or their family or whatever. And I have to say to them, I am not a counselor. Like I am not a marriage family therapist. I am not an expert on sexuality or gender identity or anything like that. I appreciate that you feel comfortable with me, and I'm more than happy to listen to you and excuse me, empathize. But it sounds like I've had sometimes where I've been like, I think you should find a therapist. It sounds like you should find a counselor or a professional, because I'm not that. And I'm sure you must have had that as well, because
I get that. I get that all the time for sure. But, it's interesting too at the reunion. It was somebody that there was somebody else that in the had sort of left. This person had left and become the vice president of a major, what had grown into a huge global construction company. He became the vice president when he went to school with it. And I sort of knew his wife. They went to school together, and she came, and I probably hadn't said 5 words to her the whole time at school. I was very quiet. I was very introverted. I was just flying under the radar. I was like, I didn't want anybody to.
No, you were doing your studies. You obviously were studying because you knew you had to get out. Like I get that.
And I was sort of, I was like, I felt very shameful about what was going on at home, and I didn't want anybody to know. And so she came over, and she talked to me. She wanted to talk to me because her world had changed drastically since leaving, and they're living in a quite a big house, and they were would always entertain executives, from all over that worked for the company, and her total world had changed. So she probably felt not very comfortable coming back to this reunion where a lot of people had not left sort of the world that they grew up very much and wouldn't understand her world. But she came and talked to me because she saw somebody that was sort of a kindred soul.
Kindred, yes.
That had gone out of their comfort zone. And she said, You're a motivational speaker. I can't believe you never said a word when you were like you are speaking publicly and she couldn't believe it. And she was just so curious to talk to me. And we talked for the longest time because she probably had very little to say, like me, to most of the people that were there.
Yeah, you guys had more. You had more in common then than you had when you had been in school.
Oh, very much. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating.
We had sort of a worldview, a world language, and a lot of people there just wouldn't understand even where we were, understand our world. So it was very interesting. Yeah. And
it's so fascinating. I went to a big high school. Like I graduated with 800 kids in my own class.
Wow.
And so our reunions are quite big, but it is interesting because there are the people who left Toledo,
Mm-hmm.
Ohio, and then there's the people who never left Toledo, Ohio. And I get that same phenomenon of I more naturally gravitated at the reunion to people who had left, to your point, right? Because I think we had more to talk about. Okay, you dropped the little pearl of wisdom back there about meeting Obama, so you have to tell that story now.
No, I really didn't. I really didn't, but that's what.
That's what they thought.
That's what they thought.
They thought. Oh, got it. But the mythology. It was he's traveling around the world.
But I have met. I have a really good story to tell about somebody. Okay,
good.
It's the. Have you watched the movie or read the book, The Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that was based on this life of Chris Gardner. So it
starred Will Smith, right?
The one starred Will Smith.
Will Smith, right? Okay.
The name of the.
I'm helping our listeners and viewers.
Chris Gardner. So, anyways, I had not seen the movie at that time, but I had read the book Pursuit of Happiness. So I thought. I had written the other kind of smart, and I read the book. And I thought, I would love to send this man a copy of The Other Kind of Smart. So, I found out, where he was, and I got his address. And I called and I talked to his receptionist. And he wasn't, at the time, managing his financial firms anymore or whatever. He was traveling all over speaking, and he was in Europe or whatever. So I sent him a copy of the book and signed it and everything. And so you forget about it. You think, okay, people like that, you'll never hear from again. They don't have the time or or anything like that. You never hear from them. So I just forgot about it. It was probably about 4 months later. I was on my way to work. I was working then. I still had my job. And so the phone rang, and I'm, couldn't recognize the number. Telemarketer, I'm thinking for sure. But I think,
of course,
there's people calling me about radio interviews now from the States. And so I thought I better answer just in case it's not. I picked it up. And this woman says to me, Chris Gardner would like to speak to you. And I was like, it's like shock.
Wow.
What do I say to him? Like I was early in the morning. I was just got out of bed, ready to, and so he got on the phone and he says, "Hey, bro, how you doing?" And I was probably babbling. I didn't know what to answer. So we talked for a few minutes.
I love it.
And he says, "Do we know each other?" And I said, "No, we haven't met." And I said, "Well, you've read my book. I've read yours, so we know each other." And he said, "Are you where those cowboys are?" And I said, "No, that's in Calgary. That's about 3 hours south of us." He said, "Well, I'm going to be there talking and I'd like you to have you as my guest, and we'll go for coffee after." And sadly, that didn't come to pass. That talk was canceled, but never got a chance to meet us. But anyways, it was the funniest thing. At the end, he said to me, "You better get to work. You've been on the phone with me for 5 minutes."
I love it.
Yeah, it was very.
I love that. That is. I mean, you answered one of the questions I had for you, because I was going to ask you like what surprised you. Which, I mean, you might have another answer, but like that is such a great story of this path you're on, and also. The child that grew up introverted, that was a very extroverted move, Mr. Harvey, to like call and get an address and send a signed book and all that. I mean, that was the new version of you. So I will ask now, looking back after 25 years, of this pursuit, what has surprised you the most about this journey? Like once you had that aha moment and read that book, like what has surprised you the most about the journey?
Oh, the journey, that it was a long journey. But what surprised me is, I can relax. I can just enjoy life. I mean, what drove me? I think the thing that drove me before, Jim, to get out and do it was anger. That was the motivation, and I needed it at the time because I needed something to drive me to get out and to get out and face, face the world and do the things, try all the things that I get out of my comfort zone. And there's a lot of getting out of my comfort zone, believe me. and to keep going. And it was anger that I guess there was some motivation. Then I realized that I don't need to come from anger. I come from a different place. I come from a place of love. No, that's where I want to come from. So that's driving me these days. Now, I still got anger in the repertoire if I need to use it.
It's always there. Yeah, it's always there.
It's there, but I don't need it anymore. And it's a wonderful feeling to know that you can lose those things. You can change those things, and I don't feel.
But it's always in the toolkit.
It's
to
in
your
the toolkit.
Point.
Yeah. If I need it.
What's interesting about that, Harvey, is I realize, like, I'm a firm believer in fate, right? And I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. You and I met on LinkedIn and connected, and you agreed to be on the podcast. And it's so funny because my post yesterday on LinkedIn, you might not have seen it because it was a Sunday post that I had scheduled in advance, people. I wasn't typing on Sunday, I had scheduled in advance, but it's a Maya Angelou poem. Right. And it's about not letting anger turn into bitterness, but letting anger turn into action.
Right.
And that 15 sentences. Yeah. It's one of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes. And, I've been using that a lot and using quotes like hers and that feeling because, we talked about it a little in the prep before we turned on the recording about the world we're living in. It's a hard world, especially for people like you and I now that really do believe in kindness and believe in empathy and lead with love. I love when you said that. I mean, like, I really, really try to lead with kindness and lead with curiosity and genuine empathy. And it's funny, you were driven, your driver was anger. My driver was fear. Like I was living in fear for a long time, fear of not loving myself, fear of being discovered for what I really was and all of that kind of stuff. And it's been an interesting, last year and a half, because the world is hard right now. I mean, I think the world is hard for everybody. And it's not about how you voted or where you live or, party or anything. I think it's just been a hard world. We're dealing with socioeconomic issues and political issues and, geopolitical tensions. And I just wonder, in the work you do and like in your Mankind Project and stuff, do you feel it? I mean, do you feel more pressure now, or is that the right word? I don't even know if pressure is the right word.
I mean, it seeps. It's sort of, you think, well, we work in our, the work that we do is every man in the group has their own issues that they deal with.
Right.
But the world seeps in. What's going on out there? So it seeps in. I mean, you can't just put up a barrier and keep it out. It seeps in, and there's a lot of added anxiety and pressure, and it's there's that seeps in, and we feel it, and we're affected by it. But you said something interesting here. What your emotion was fear. For me, I felt a lot of fear, and where the anger came in, and where it got me. It got me out of fear, and it got me moving, because I found the fear sort of immobilized me. But when I could get angry, when I was able to get angry, I got moving. Like I overrode the fear.
Yeah, it was momentum. Right, it was momentum.
It overrode the fear, and I was able to move. So
that's real.
Yeah, I found that's how it helped me, because when I got into fear. And I think what happened, my brother lived in fear. That was his whole.
He never got the momentum.
Never got out of the fear.
Well, I'm getting kind of emotional listening to you, because you perfectly illustrate. I mean, so many really important things. Like, first off, a growth mindset. In my coaching and advising business. We always talk about, in coaching, we're trying to get people to a growth mindset, which is just believing that you can You can make changes and you can move further. You perfectly talked about that. The first lesson in my book, and I think this is where we were both coming from, and that's why I got emotional, is control the controllable, but leave space for the possible. And both of us were in situations where we weren't fully in control.
No.
And you were not in control of your household or your father or your mother's reaction. And your brother certainly wasn't either. I couldn't control my sexuality. I was what I was. I was trying to control it because I thought it was wrong or broken. And then, to your point, it's that lack of control that then leads to fear and anger and anxiety. And I think when you're talking about how, I love that word, seeps into the situations like with the Mankind Project and the other work you do, that's the word I've been using, with my friends and my family and even my clients, is I have more angst right now than I've had in a long time. And I find myself worrying about things going on in the world that, quite honestly, Harvey, I don't have control over.
Yes.
Like I do not have control over global conflicts or the price of oil or war or, I don't, but I feel more angst and I feel like a sense of responsibility. And so what I did is I was like, I just am going to start writing more. I'm going to start posting more. I'm going to do a newsletter. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to write a new book because I got to get this angst out. Like I've got to get it out, or otherwise I felt like it was either a little bit of like fight or flight. And I think you'll understand that. It's like, I'm either going to give up and be like, life is miserable and I'm just going to wait for the next election, or I'm going to use my voice and my platform to fight and to educate. So I love that word seeps, because that's exactly what it feels to me. It's like it's in my life now. And I wake up in the morning and I have to consciously say to myself, Jim, don't look at the news yet. Like, go walk the dogs, have a coffee, talk to your husband, like do something with joy before you engage.
That's good. I find the same with myself. You need to know what's going on, but you don't have to inundate yourself with the news.
It's such a great word again.
I try to really limit. I don't like this. I know people watch the news all day, and that's crazy making. Because you hear what's going on, but you don't have to hear it over and over. And like you just aware of it, but getting into it, I try to avoid it, like just watching too much of it or what's going on.
I agree. But that's good. You're controlling it. I've had to learn the same thing. I've had to learn all those little tips, like I don't sleep with my phone next to the bed.
No.
I was always the one who was like, oh, well, my phone is my alarm, right? Which was like code for meant I could roll over and look at my phone. All those things I've had to learn and re-educate myself in the last, 12, 18 months. And really the last 12 or 18 months is where I even added the word radical in front of kindness. Like for a long time, I only talked about kindness. And then I was like, no, I'm going to be radically kind, because kindness was missing. Like it was so missing in civil society, and we weren't being civil to each other, and we weren't having really good discussions. There was so much anger within families and within neighborhoods, so much divisiveness. That I was like, we have to be radical. And it's sad to say kindness, you need to be radically kind. It's sad to put that word in front of kindness, but I think we need it.
I think so, because what gives me hope, Jim, is that the world has always sort of gone from extreme to extreme. Maybe we're ready for radical kindness. Maybe you're tired of the way the situation is. Enough people are tired of the way it is. They want to see the change, and they're willing to open themselves up to the change and see that. So maybe the time has come in the world for radical kindness. There's always, it goes from one extreme to another.
It does. We pendulum swing.
Pendulum swing. So maybe it's
pendulum. I hope. I mean, I really, And I find myself elevating and celebrating stories of kindness when I find them, right? Yeah. Where it's just random, random acts of kindness. Okay, well, we're coming towards the end of our time, which I can't believe. I just looked and we're coming towards the end of our time. Yeah. But if people want to get in contact with you, what's the easiest way for them to find you?
Oh, they can go through the website. You go through the website. There's actually a quiz that people can do. It's free. It's 15 questions. It's fun. They can check out their emotional intelligence, and it's self-scoring, and it's available in 120 languages. So chances are, if you're a different language out there, it's available in that language. So if that's your first language, theotherkindofsmart.com. One word, theotherkindofsmart.com. And
brilliant URL. I love it. The name of remember everybody, the name of his first book, but then also but that's a brilliant URL.
Or they can email me to Harvey dot, I know you Americans say dot or period. We said period. EI guy at Shaw, SHAW.ci. I'm the EI guy. So
EI guy.
But if the EI guy. So just gonna.
And he is the EI guy. He is the emotionally intelligent guy. Okay, well, you remind everybody the one thing I want you to do at the end, because the quote from the Goleman book is so good. That was your aha moment.
Yeah.
I want you to say that again because it was so good.
It said your intellect can come to naught when your emotions hold sway. And that's on page 4. I've never forgotten that.
Please read the whole book, everybody. But gosh, that's incredible. Well, Harvey, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for the work you do and for the energy, the positive energy and the realness that you bring into the world. And thank you for being really a guru of EQ, EI when we need that. I mean, we need your books, we need your energy, we need your talks. I think you're part of maybe you're on the radically kind pendulum with me, but I think we need you now more than ever. Yeah. So keep going. And one of my favorite quotes is, "May we leave our corner of the world better than we found it." And you are a living role model for that. I mean, it is such a pleasure and an honor to spend time with you. And I have a feeling we're going to do more together. I just feel us. I feel us on a stage.
Yes.
Somebody out there listening or seeing, like, you're going to get us on a panel, get us on a stage, because I think we're two very different people with very different backgrounds that have both come to this path for very different reasons, but we're on a very similar path now. And I think there's something fascinating by that. And thank you. Keep it up. I'll make sure all this stuff is in the show notes on how they can get in touch with you. And we will speak soon, I promise.
I appreciate the opportunity. You've been a fantastic host, Jim. And we certainly will work together again I can feel it. I can feel that. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time. And I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm really feeling fulfilled and very happy about the way things have turned out. So
very God, grateful. That's amazing. Thank you. Great. That is a great word. Gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Ask for an Answer. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't just nod and move on. Take one idea, one question, one uncomfortable and bring it into your next meeting, your next one-on-one, or your next big decision. That's how this becomes a practice, not just a podcast. If you're leading a team, a classroom, a company, or just your own next chapter, you don't have to have it all figured out. You do have to be willing to listen, to ask better questions, and to create the kind of safety where people will actually tell you what they see. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's in the arena with you. And if you want more tools, stories, and real talk leadership moments, make sure you follow the show and leave a review so others can find us. I'm Jim Fielding. Thank you for being here, for leading with less armor and more intention. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep asking for an answer.